Hello, my name is Michael Uyttebroek, and I'd like to do a presentation on consciousness, thoughts, and meditation. I don't know if it happens to you, but it happens to me. When I start to read or reread a book by Billy, suddenly I discover stuff that I hadn't seen before. And I see it from a new light, a new perspective. And this is what happened. I was reading The Way to Live by Billy, and I suddenly came across some statements about consciousness, which I found very fascinating. And so this has been a motivation to do this presentation. So here we go. The purpose of this presentation is to shed some light on the attributes of consciousness. What is its innermost nature? And to motivate myself and others to strive deeper into meditation and to unburden the consciousness from the daily bustle of thoughts. Here is an excerpt from the Values of Ethics and Morals, an essay by Billy. The quote, "The consciousness is much more than is generally claimed by science, namely that it would form, perceive, assess, and consciously recognize and represent something as knowledge in the broadest sense of experiencing mental processes and states. Also that feeling, seeing, hearing, tasting, and much more and other things would be possible through the consciousness, which, however, is not true in this sense. Because the consciousness cannot create all these values itself, rather only perceive them and consequently only assess them. This is because separately, the corresponding sense organs in the brain, which first have to make the corresponding perception in order to then pass it on to the consciousness, are indeed responsible for the effective perception of all these factors, wherethrough only then the knowledge regarding what is perceived arises in the consciousness. And this is only possible because the creation energy really enlivens the consciousness. It is also this energy and power through which alone it is possible for the consciousness to form thoughts, which, depending on the type of thought, generate negative or positive swinging waves, which accordingly, in turn, have a disturbing or animating effect on the near and wider environment and on the life forms themselves. For the human beings, this generating of negative or positive swinging waves from thoughts, even at a distance, comes to fruition in an emotional form. Consequently, an attracting or a rejecting factor arises. For example, a sympathy and friendship, or an antipathy, or even an enmity, as also joy and peace, and so forth, as also hatred, revenge, war, murder, manslaughter, etc. Depending on the thought forms, these have the really thinking or pseudo-thinking human beings, they have an effect on these human beings, indeed in such a wise that some become happy and cheerful or simply raised up, while others become sour, use Gewalt, become angry, furious, or psychically ill. Psychically ill precisely because the consciousness of the human beings are constantly negatively influenced by their own all-denying and confused thoughts, and therewith by the feeling world that arises from them. Because the human beings can form the power and energy of their consciousness into thoughts and their feeling states, it is possible for them to shape these negatively or positively and to exalt the value of them or to destroy them pathologically. So that was an excerpt from the Values of Ethics and Morals. by Billy. Now, from The Way to Live, the German English version, page 228, the original nature of the consciousness is pure and without burden. The consciousness is pure and is a block of awareness and is constantly alert and radiant, and at the same time intelligent, recognizing, reacting, and active. The innermost nature of the consciousness is the overall consciousness block, whose innermost essence of developmental change and of death remains just as completely untouched and immortal as the spirit, or new term, creation energy part piece. This nature is concealed in the consciousness and is obscured by the everyday bustle of thoughts and emotions through which the human being is not able to perceive it. But sometimes the thoughts and emotions are blown away as clouds are by a strong wind, whereby the inner values become free and visible. Then, under certain circumstances, moments are able to occur in which the human being obtains a view into them, which works as inspirations on the thinking, creating, perceiving, and researching consciousness. Such insights are thereby of varying depths. However, in each case, they brighten the human being's understanding to a certain degree and bring him, her, more sense and freedom. But that only becomes possible as a result of the fact that in connection with the spirit, this inner nature of the overall consciousness block is the origin of the understanding itself. And from an extract from an essay by Christian Freiner, edited by Billy, on the topic of overall consciousness block, I'll just read this short little sentence. It is interesting to note that this overall consciousness block is constantly present in the human being as part of the creation energy, as an all-knowing factor of everything which is learned in all lives. Consequently, it forms the human overall consciousness block, which together with the spirit form, respectively creation energy form, enters into the embryo on the 21st day after conception and begins to be active. So there's an interesting connection there. Now, the following is an extract from the book The Way to Live on page 180. He presents an opening statement that can be used before meditating, and he clearly points out the purpose and function of this statement. Quote, as a beginning to meditation, a meditative principle can be used. I bring my consciousness home. I let go of everything. I relax myself. With these 3 points, the fundamentals in every meditation are addressed, because with each individual phase of this 3-part meditative sentence, different important levels of meaning are addressed. So from The Way to Live, page 180. Bringing the consciousness home means that through the meditatively practiced attentiveness, it is put into the state of equalizedness and of calm abiding. Viewed and considered in the deeper sense, bringing the consciousness home means to really turn inwardly to the innermost realm of the consciousness, to put one's consciousness itself into one's own innermost realm, and to let it rest in its nature in purely assimilating and observing form, without letting it be influenced, that is to say, disturbed by intrusive thoughts. I let go of everything means to release one's consciousness from the prison of the steered or uncontrolled thoughts. which have the effect for the consciousness's calm abiding and in its innermost realm of a prison from which it must free itself. Once one has successfully left the prison of the thoughts, then one recognizes that all fear and anxiety, as well as the despair and all desires, only arise out of the all-embracing and stirring thoughts from which the consciousness must free itself. In the deepest levels of the consciousness, inspirations become free. Cognitions and certainty about the nature of one's very own self arising out of the growing understanding of the innermost part of the consciousness. It is this, the generosity of the quiescent abiding, which enables the human being to free himself, herself, and to let himself, herself slip away from being plagued and afflicted, and let himself, herself slip away from the burdens and unfriendlinesses of the everyday. I relax myself ultimately means to dissolve the tenseness of the consciousness, which is in constant uproar because of the thoughts, and to completely relax in the consciousness itself. It means to go into the nature of the consciousness, into the state of the absolute stillness based on the stillness itself. In this state, the total relaxation dissolves the prison of the thoughts, whereby the impressions and cognitions, as well as the inspirations and intuitions and so forth, find free access into the consciousness without being impaired through a controlled or uncontrolled form of impeding thoughts. And finally, in my own words here, a suitable meditation needs to be selected, of which there are many to choose from. There are meditations that involve the simple, the conscious repeating of a phrase to oneself, either silently or aloud, or repeating a sound, as is the case with the Om meditation, Om meditation. Alternatively, one can simply focus on the natural breath or on an object in the room, be it a flickering candle or a knot in the wall. There are countless, many more variations. However, the key to a successful meditation is to give the object of meditation one's full attention and to relax. And for example, on page 244 of The Way to Live, Billy states, one of the easiest and most helpful meditation methods consists of directing the consciousness onto a chosen, joyfully pleasing object and letting the consciousness rest gently on it. For this, an object of natural beauty can be used, which has an inspiring effect on the consciousness and through which the feelings also resonate correspondingly. For example, the object can be a flower or a sparkling crystal, which are either there in reality or only exist as fantasy. But it is better that an object is chosen which embodies the truth and which is thus also there in reality. And that, my friends, ends this presentation. Thank you very much, and Salome.